Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryan Nelson. Welcome to Rooster AM. Today I have Michael Wright here with me, and he has an incredible story about his daughter, her birth, and how the Lord works, and how if you are in any trouble today, if you feel like you don't have hope, after you hear this story, I think you'll understand what it means to have hope and that you can still have hope in our Lord no matter the circumstance. Michael, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ryan. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Well, first off, I'll let them know how we met. It was very. I was not expecting it. I walk into an office. John. He's my financial advisor over at Edward Financial, and I went in there and we were talking about his daughter and her business, and I was thinking,
His wife.
or yeah, well, I said daughter, your daughter, his wife, yeah, his wife, and he said, and I was like, man, we have this thing going on with the podcast. And he was like, dude, I want to be in. I've already been watching you. I'm in. Like, I'm in. And I was like, all right, sweet. And as I was walking out, I go, everybody seems to think that I just want to go after these celebrity people. That's not the truth. I said, the real purpose for this podcast was real people and their real stories. And especially here in Enid, there's a lot of real good stories here in Enid. And like you look at the map of the United States, and Enid is like the artery of the heart of the United States, lines up perfect. And what good comes out of here just spreads to the rest of the country. And that's what this story is to me. I think it's good that can be spread out into the country. And so as I was there, John said, hey, I've got a guy who has a pretty good story. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, he's right in here. Kind of like, be careful. It's, I think my father-in-law, and I was like, all right. So I went in there, and after I heard 5 minutes of this story and talked to Michael, I was like, man, this guy is so cool. I'm ready to have him on. So welcome. And again, just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
So just kind of dive right in and start sharing with us this story of your daughter.
Story. So it's called One Blip. Okay. And so my wife had a couple of miscarriages, and so I decided I would take her down to Oklahoma City to a old fraternity brother of mine who was a reproduction specialist, and he examined her and said that she had a physical issue that was preventing her from carrying full term. And he said, for a minor operation, we can fix that and she'll be able to deliver. And I asked her, what do you want to do? And she said, let's do it. So she had an operation, gets pregnant again. She loved it, man. She was one of those, the women that really are happy about being pregnant glow.
Yeah.
She was like a bright light. Okay. And she worked out. She ate well the day before delivery. She was doing a Zumba class, and she was going to deliver naturally. It's going to be the best baby ever born. So our child was born September 13th, 1991 at 2:19 p.m. in the afternoon at St. Mary's Hospital. And uh, when she was born, we looked over, and she was blue. She was dark blue. And the look on the nurses' faces was terrifying. So we they whisked her out of the room, and about 30 minutes later, Dr. Simon, who's a pediatrician, a good personal friend of mine, came over. He took me into a side room, and he held up the X-ray, and he's pointing out all these things are wrong. And I'm thinking, Dr. Simon, you got this thing upside down. So I mean, we work so hard. You can't be right. And then he said, and here is her lung, the size of a dime, in her right shoulder. He said, if she survives, which is highly unlikely, she'll never have a right lung. So they sent her to call for a helicopter, and helicopter down to Children's Memorial Hospital. And I decided if she's going to die, I want to be holding her hand. So I drove down there, and on the way, get stopped by the High Patrol. And the guy let me go, and I told him the story. And I pulled in, and out comes a doctor that looks like he's in the seventh grade at Waller.
Oh.
I'm thinking, oh my goodness.
This is who you're putting in charge?
And turns out the guy was great. And he told me what was wrong. She had a diaphragmatic hernia, which means that her diaphragm had not grown together, and her organs were everywhere. and that she had a 4% chance of survival. And he said, luckily, she's not a male. And I said, why is that? And he said, males give up. Males only live through this about 1.5 out of 100 survive. We've got 4 out of 100 chance for her because she's a female. She will fight to live. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take her apart. We're going to take her organs out of her body. We're going to put her intestines in a silo and leave it outside of her body. And in a few days, hopefully, we'll be able to put it back into her body. And we're going to make a diaphragm for her out of Vortex, which is what is used to make asphalt highways. The Gore-Tex is a material, and we're going to use this material to make a diaphragm for her. So I called my wife. They wouldn't let her out in St. Mary's. I called my wife, and I said, what do you want to do? And she said, we got to do what we got to do. So go ahead. I said, I told them, go ahead. So they started working on her that night. And about 30 people showed up in the waiting room that evening from Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Enid, to be with me. And my parents were there. My parents rode down with me in the car. And finally, everybody had to go home. And I'd let my parents take my car home. And they went back to Enid. And the doctor came in. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'll just sleep here somewhere. And he said, okay, I'm going to get you a blanket and a pillow. And we'll take you into the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit waiting room. And he takes me in there and he gives me, and he said, okay, I'll see you in the morning. So this was about 2:00 in the morning. I got down. Got down on my knees and started to pray at 2:00 in the morning. I prayed and prayed and prayed. Now the timing is very important, the timing of this. And I prayed. And I prayed. I looked at my watch and it was 4:00 in the morning. And I said, God, please take her. I don't know what to do. And I lay down. 8:00 in the morning, the doctor comes in. I sit up. He sits across from me. He takes forever to talk. And I'm thinking, here's a young doctor. This is the first time he's going to tell somebody their child died. And he said, the strangest thing happened last night, about 4:00 in the morning. I'm getting ready to turn off all the equipment, and she's gone. And all of a sudden, I see one blip of oxygen in her bloodstream, one blip. I decided to leave it on to see what happened. So we struggled through the day. That night, the associate pastor from the First Presbyterian Church here in Enid drove down, and we prayed for her, and they came in and said, if you're believers, you probably ought to have her baptized because it doesn't look like she's going to make it. So the associate minister said a wonderful prayer. It put me at ease. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, dude. I'm about to cry over here listening to the story, so don't feel.
Okay. So I was going to turn her over to God, give her to God. And she made it through the night. They came the next day and they said, well, we've done all we can do for her here. And she's going to have to, if you want her to live. And by that time, my wife demanded to be released and drove down to the city. And they said, we've done all we can do for her here. And the only thing we can do now is a treatment called ECMO, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the blood out of her body. We're going to run it through a machine. We're going to put oxygen in the blood, and then we're going to put it back in her body. Just keep it going so she's got oxygen in her blood so she can live. And they said, well, and the bad thing is that she's going to be deaf, she's going to be retarded, she's going to be blind, or she's going to be all three. My wife didn't hesitate. She said, we just need to keep her alive. So then they said, well, there's only three places it's done in the U.S. at that time, back in the 90s. Lubbock, Texas, Dallas, or Las Vegas. And I asked the doctor, uh, what would you do if it was your doctor? And he said, I would send her to Lubbock, Texas. And I said, okay, that's what we'll do. So I brought a King Air from Lubbock, picked her up, flew her to Lubbock. Back in those days before cell phones, they wouldn't let us go on the same flight. So I went on a flight. My wife followed. My parents drove my car down there to Lubbock. And so I got there. It's amazing. I got on the plane. The person I was sitting next to, last name was Wright, and she worked at the hospital. And so she said, I will take you, introduce you. So I got first class treatment. I mean, boom, right. I met the doctor. She took me in. It's like I was some sort of celebrity. And they let us stay at the Ronald McDonald's house there on the property of the hospital. And so they said, so we prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. And finally they came in and said, hey, we don't think she's going to have to go on ECMO. We think that maybe she can make it without ECMO. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll her organs like a tube of toothpaste back into her body. If her body accepts it, she'll make it. If her body rejects it, then we're done. And I told Kelly, I said, Kelly, we have to pray like we've never prayed before. So I grabbed her hand. We went down to the chapel there. We went down the front row. We got down on our knees. And we started to pray. And about 45 minutes later, the doors burst open. My dad's in the doorway, and he yells out, she's alive. She made it. We fell on the ground praising God. I turn around. My dad's running down the aisle and jumps on me. We were so happy. So we stayed there a few more days to recover, and then they flew her back. We wanted to get back closer to home. They flew her back to Oklahoma City, and we drove back. And so then there were other operations that she had to have, and so we went back to one of the operations, and my wife was there and talking to another woman with a little baby, and it turns out, the places, people are everywhere, yeah. Children in the hospital, the halls are, it's just crazy. And she's talking to this woman, and they're comparing stories, and she was a week behind us, exact same story. We went to Lubbock. The difference is she went on ECMO, this little girl did. And while they're talking, I lean down to her, this little girl, beautiful little girl, I'm talking to her, and her mother says, she's deaf. My knees buckled. I literally almost went to the floor. So I recovered, and we went ahead. We were having one of the surgeries done on her later that day, and we were in the waiting room, another waiting room, bigger waiting room. There were about 40 or 50 people in this waiting room, and we're talking, waiting anxiously, and I see the doctor come in the door, and he's looking around, he sees me immediately, and his eyes lock on my his eyes lock on my eyes, and I see him. He's walking towards me with this astounded look on his face, and I'm thinking something's gone wrong. And he never leaves my eyes, and he steps through and around people, walking to me. I'm watching him. He comes up, and he said, the most, he said, I can't explain what happened when I got in there, but when I got in there, her right lung, and she wasn't supposed to have one, her right lung was full and pink and actually bigger than her left lung. And he said, there's no way. There's no way that could happen.
God's breath of life.
And I said, I thought to myself, yes, doctor, there is. It's called the power of prayer.
Is it true that they shut down like a football field and a rodeo and everybody
Yeah,
just started?
yeah. So that night, the night that she was born, Friday night, the they stopped the football game. There's a rodeo going on, and another concert of some sort was going on, and all three of them stopped and prayed for her. So, literally right off. So one of the things there's so many details. Can't remember them all 33 years later, but I'm glad you brought that up. So the um, actual minister called me the second night, says, is there anything I can do? And I said, we need to have as many people praying for her as possible. Can you contact the Ministerial Alliance and have all the churches pray for her? And he said, yes, I'll do that. So we had, I bet we had thousands of people praying for her. And we got cards and letters and teddy bears from all over the country. People heard her story. And so the prayer works.
Yeah. You got to fall on your knees sometimes.
And you got to fall on your knees.
I've had to do that lately.
Have you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's good to know that God still moves. Yeah. He always will, and he can put life right back into somebody. And it's odd to me when I walk through life and people say, well, there's got to be an explanation, but the doctor says there is no explanation. She had a lung the size of a dime. Now she has one. And the 4 o'clock in the morning, that's when he saw the blip, a little piece of life left in her. And it's like the word, like the word Yahweh in the Bible is the name for God. And I've learned from a pastor, he taught me that it's actually not a word, it's breath. The way you say it, it's Yahweh. Like it's breath of life. It's God's breath. Mm-hmm. And when everyone thought she was going to die, God's breath still breathed over her. And here's the thing that I think is incredible. I was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. I was purple. My heart stopped multiple times. And they said the same thing to my mom. They told her, and kind of a running joke in the family for a long time was, he's not going to be normal. Like there's going to be something wrong with him,
They were right.
Yeah, and they were right, So like, so there's kind of a running joke, but they were like, he's going to be deaf. He's going to have something wrong. And the truth is, it was the total opposite. I was fully functional in every way, and your daughter is today. How is that even? I don't even know how that's possible when you have no oxygen for hours upon hours upon hours, and then it comes back. Sure. Like it's purely a God moment. Okay, and I'm just, I've known your daughter for a long time. I had no idea any of this. Mm-hmm. She is a fully operational business owner,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She owns the Modern Thread, the
Modern Thread here in Enid. Yeah. Like I'm like this. She's got twins
and a 3-year-old. She's got 3 little boys. The amazing thing is that she played high school tennis and volleyball, which you would think she wouldn't be able to do, but because God gave her lung back, enabled her to, play high school.
Incredible. Yeah. And And I don't know, like I could be reaching, like I really could be reaching, but I think about these moments when people, you have people who say things like, "Yeah, I'll pray for you," but they're just words. I mean, I'll pray for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just like I'm saying, I've got a lot of that lately. People are like, I've been praying for you. Well, what have you been praying?
Yeah.
Well, I've been praying God just be with Ryan, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
But you guys fell on your knees. It was a focused prayer. Thousands of people focused on this one little girl at this one moment, and you got to see God move. My hope of this is that as a people, we start doing that again,
Yes.
because I've seen it a lot. Like we do the whole, we'll pray for you. Oh, you've been put on a prayer list or an email stream. No, when are we going to just stop and intentionally stop, get on our knees, and just pray and just ask the Lord for mercy?
Mm-hmm. Well, this changed my life and so much that now I'm to the point in my relationship with the Lord that every morning I'll get up, get on my knees, say my prayers, read a chapter or two of the Bible, and it makes a whole lot of difference. One thing about people praying for for her. 4 or 5 years later, I'm at some church event someplace, and this woman comes up to me and said, "Are you the father of that little girl that we prayed for?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "What happened to her?" And I said, "Because of you, she lived." So there were people praying for her.
Yeah, that just, man, that just fills my heart up.
Mm-hmm.
What it does is it gives you hope. Like I'm a pastor. Yeah, I've been a pastor. I'm not currently actively pastoring anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but as a title. But I don't believe pastor is a title. I think it's a verb. It's an action. It's something you do to go and pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone can do that. Anyone can be a pastor right now. They just think of the one person who's in need and pray. And that lady at that conference that you saw, she doesn't realize that she was being a pastor in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody seems to think it's a guy behind a pulpit. That's just not true. The guy behind the pulpit is just as bad as everyone else. We all are in need of Jesus. We're all in need of his grace and mercy, just like a little baby who can't breathe. It's that when Jesus talks about, hurting any of these little ones, put a millstone. I know he's talking about new believers when he says that, but he's using the image of a little child who's helpless, who has nothing. And it took people's prayers and faith to bring about change in her life. And God did it. Like I'm not giving people credit.
Yeah,
God did
there's
it.
no doubt about it.
But it's like we need to start as a people falling on our knees again and praying. Like it's sad. Like because as a pastor, I've seen it 100 times. I've needed hope. I've been in rooms praying for people. I mean, I've prayed for so many people, Michael, and I've seen good happen, but then I've also not seen it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to think to yourself, Lord, Lord, but you always know he's going to work it out for his good. It's going to work out,
Mm-hmm.
good or bad. If something bad would have happened to her, something good would have happened out of it. How, we don't always know.
Right.
But
His ways are greater than our ways.
yeah, and so you just sit there, but you're still called to fall on your knees and pray. I think we've been disheartened, certainly as a church. I know a lot of church people, like, they'll come in. I want you to pray for my child. Okay, my prayer is no better than yours.
Yeah.
My prayer is no better than yours. Ask Michael, who fell on his knees at the hospital. I'm telling you, your prayer was more powerful than what I could have ever given that day for anybody. But there is this misconception idea that the pastor is like the one who has the power. Nope, it's Jesus. And the cool thing is, God's word says if you don't even know what to say, the Spirit of God knows your heart.
Mm-hmm.
He will deliver it to the Father.
Yeah, the one thing I learned from it is we're talking about the power of prayer. seemed like the more people, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, you can tell me, but the more people, we had thousands of people praying. I really believe that. Um, and more people praying for, to me, made the difference. Not just my prayer.
I believe that. But here's what I believe. I believe in the two ways. The Bible does say it only takes the prayer of one righteous man, right? That's all it takes. But I also remember the parable of the king where they came in and asked him, and he was getting annoyed. And after a while, he finally said, "Okay, you keep coming, you don't stop." Now, I'm just saying like this. So I know it's kind of, and I could be wrong, and Lord, you'll correct me when I get to heaven. But I think if we annoy him enough, he'll eventually move. He's like, I'm getting 10,000 prayers right now. I got to do something because my answering machine's getting full, like. But I also know that it only takes one person, So I think it's both and. Like, it only takes one person, but it doesn't hurt if you have 10,000, like. And so it's like,
just in case.
But there's also the witness of it. I think the more that people pray, the more that God could move because he's showing the witness of who he is to more than just one or two people. Imagine that whole football stadium finding out a week later that this little girl that they stopped and prayed for survived.
Yeah.
She's not only survived, she's thriving. Like there's not a single thing wrong with her.
Yeah.
Like, you would think there would be some sort of long-term damage, but there's nothing.
When she was thinking about getting pregnant, that vortex is still in there.
Wow.
Yeah. So I took her down back to the same doctor. My
Was
friend.
he grown up?
Huh?
Was he grown up? Was it the Doogie Howser kid that you saw walking out?
Well, he was by then he was older, and he got a little gray hair. But I took her down there because I wanted him to look at her, and we told him the story about what had happened, and that Gore-Tex was in there, and we were concerned, can she deliver the sick one? And he said, yeah. He said the body will adapt. And so what does she do? She has 3 kids.
She has twins. Like God just keeps blessing her.
Well, we're going to get that. We're not sure yet because they're not getting much sleep, but the twins have been just all 3 of them are just fantastic.
Did it? I don't know. We're talking about this for the first time, but did it strengthen your faith, or did you already have strong faith, or were you just kind of like in between? You were like, yeah, we'll pray for people, but now when you say I'm praying for
you, when this happened, I mean, there's no question. When I turned her over to him at 4:00 in the morning, man, it was right on the button. I mean, the doctor comes in and says at 4:00 in the morning, and I'm thinking that's when I turned her over to God. So I mean, that just sold it for me.
Yeah.
That just.
There's no such thing as a coincidence.
Not a coincidence.
There's no such thing.
Yeah.
That is such an incredible story, and man, just thank you for sharing. Is there anything you want to say to your daughter as she watches this?
Well, she wanted to come today.
Why didn't she come? I'd have let her come. Actually, if you guys want to go see her, she's at Modern Thread here in Enid.
Yeah, that's right.
Just go in there, and you know what we should do? Like, we should organize a appreciation day to the Lord, and we all go to Modern Thread and go buy an item. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying right now, I actually shop there. Like, before now this doesn't. All right, this is going to throw people off because they're going to be like, he's just so full of it. But I don't take sponsors I'm not willing to endorse.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm going to be real. There's been 2 or 3 companies that have been like, hey, we're in, but I just don't want to do it because I can't endorse it. Mm-hmm. I can endorse the Modern Thread. I've been shopping there for you. And I remember you being there. Like, I was thinking about it. My wife was working there.
She did work there.
And you were there looking around, and she was doing something, and I saw you there. I had no idea that you were
her father.
Her father, yeah. And I think I was in there like, man, I think I said something stupid, like that sales girl right there, isn't she pretty hot? Like that was my wife, like
I hope I did. What did I say?
I can't remember. You just laughed. You were like, she is a sweetheart or something. I was like, yeah. But yeah, that's and it's crazy because my wife, how we met her was we were sitting there in what was that place? It's Sandy's Tacos now, but it used to be something else. It was
Down on South End Bureau.
yeah,
Um,
it was a breakfast place.
yeah,
It was really good.
yeah, it was good.
I don't know why they went out of business, but it was.
Her either she or her mother got sick.
That's why.
That's why it was a great place to eat.
Yeah, I was one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Well, we were in there
Oh, you were in
eating.
there, and that's where you met.
Yeah, we were just sitting there. Me and my wife were talking, and when Whitney walked by, uh, Chloe looked at her and said, "Oh my gosh, your outfit looks so nice." And then like 5 minutes later, she came over and she was like, "You're the kind of person we need at our store." and she did it. It was just, and Chloe probably would have stayed there for a while. It was just financially, it was harder.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now it's not so much like that. When you're a pastor, you don't get paid very much.
Right.
Like people think that no,
Yeah.
not what you think. And people were always like, "You're like one of those prosperity guys. Look at all the stuff you have." And you're like, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's because I have two jobs."
Yeah, that's why I'm prosperous.
Yeah. One of them doesn't prosper, the other one does. So like, don't But God provides in His ways. At that time, we really needed the provision, and it helped. And man, yeah, your daughter's just a sweetheart. She really was, and she's fun, and that's how I met John.
Mm-hmm.
And then John got all my money. He just did. It was like, yeah, if you're gonna give someone money, give it to someone you know.
That's
and
right.
so I gave it to him, and
That's
he's taking care of it over at Edward Jones. So
Good.
he takes care of all of my finances. So I would encourage people, go over to Modern Thread sometime this week, and man, just, I don't know, out of appreciation, just buy something, because that's just such an incredible story. Like, God provided us with her, and I think we should give provision back and show our gratefulness.
She'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
So why you were a pastor at church?
Yeah.
You decided to give that up?
Yeah.
And do this?
Yeah.
So what helped you make that decision?
Well, a lot. I went over to that church when it was very, very small, and I went and I helped build it up, and it got pretty large. There was and this is no hard feelings towards a church. Okay, so what I'm about to say could sound really bad.
Now, if you don't want to answer,
no, I'm okay with answering. I'm okay. It could sound really bad, but I'm not meaning it bad. I had information that could really hurt somebody, and people were willing to go a long distance to get that information, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to ruin families and hurt homes and hearts. There are some things that should be left unsaid,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm not going to do that. And a lot of the people were upset about that. And it caused a lot of pain, and it was better for me to walk away than to cause more pain. The truth is, I love them very much. I really do. I still love them. But what really brought me here was when after that happened, I had this idea of, God doesn't want me doing this anymore. Like, that was like He's releasing me, like kind of like God's releasing me. And I was like, maybe I should do something else. Well, I got over here, and it still tugged at my heart. Like, doesn't matter what you do, you still do the Lord's work. And so during the week, we just have our regular podcast, but on Sundays, it's for Him, So we'll do a week and this is what I tell people: we're not a Christian podcast. It's a podcast ran by a Christian. That's totally different. Anyone's welcome to come, We talk about all sorts of things, but every Sunday you're going to get to hear about Jesus or his power or something he's done.
So you do a podcast on
Sundays too.
Sunday?
Yeah. It's different. Like right now, it's a devotional, like a written devotional, but I'm going to starting now, like really literally in the next week, we're going to start doing it as a video as well.
So you have guests or
Guest, or I'll just do a message, like a small, 10-minute, 15-minute message. And the idea is not to trick people. It's just to show them what I believe is the way. During the week, you can listen to whatever you want. I'll be talking to country music singers, actors, we'll be talking about things that you're not supposed to be talking about. That's the other thing is, as a pastor, there's things that you're just shunned. You're looked down upon if you talk about it. Like for instance, I'll go to a bar and sit with people and talk with them, and they're like, that is so sinful for a pastor to walk into a bar. Like people believe that. Yeah, people believe that. Like that, and they're like, oh my goodness. And the fact that I'm very transparent and genuine. When I say transparent and genuine, not I'm going to be fully honest. Like I don't really care anymore. But like what happened at the church with me, I wasn't fully transparent because I was trying to protect people. That's why. Most people, they think that's you're being deceitful. Not at all. I just don't want people to get hurt. The truth is though, I know that I'm no better than anyone else. I am a wretched sinner in need of Jesus, just like everyone. And that's hard to swallow sometimes as congregation people, because they look at the man behind the pulpit as somebody who is supposed to be better than everyone else. And I never would ever take that position, because I got to face the Lord one day, and I don't want to face him saying, I pretended or acted like I was better than everyone else when I just know I'm not. And you see it throughout the Bible. That's the goodness of God's grace. He loves you exactly where you are. And people miss that. They miss it. You know how many times I go to funerals and I'll be doing a funeral and someone will be like, he believed in Jesus, but man, he did this. And I don't know how God will forgive him. And I'm like, you don't understand my God.
Yeah, that's right.
Because my God is very forgiving.
Yeah.
And that's even wherever you are, so it can be hard for people to wrap their minds around God's real grace. Like real grace would say something like, if someone made a mistake or hurt you in your life, you would forgive them from the east to the west and love them exactly where they are. Because that's exactly what Jesus did for us. This idea of modern forgiveness and grace is, well, if you don't have a redemptive heart the way that we want it, or you don't show it the way that we want to see it, then we're not going to love you where you are. We're not going to show grace. That's not grace. Grace is undeserving. It's something you don't deserve. And that's kind of hard for people to wrap their minds around, and that's why I don't know if I'll ever operate well in a religious system with government. The great thing about the church was when I got there was no system, there was no government, and that was great because we took off. But the minute we started adding the elders and adding committees and all that, then it just became, okay, it's now a religious government system. And it's what I call the New Age Pharisee. Like you just have
New Age Pharisees. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, that's what it is, the New Age Pharisees. So like, or you just let the Spirit lead. And here's the deal. Letting the Spirit lead doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. There are times where you literally will hear the Spirit and you go, I'm not into it today, Lord. I don't want to do that, and that's wrong and that's sinful. But that doesn't.
Like Jonah.
Yeah. Oh, Jonah's the perfect thing.
Yeah.
Like David.
Yeah.
Imagine David and Bathsheba. The Spirit of God must have told David, do not do this.
Right. He still did it.
He still did it. But God, he still loved him, redeemed him. Nebuchadnezzar. When God said, I do not find favor in you. And he went out for 7 seasons, chewed the grass.
Yeah.
But God restored him and made him more prosperous. Like, that is real grace. But we live in a place where, well, if you're not willing to do or abide by our rules and laws, well,
You're out.
you're out. And so they didn't fire me. I resigned. You know, I could have fought it, probably would have won it, but it's not worth it because. And here's why: I actually really love those people, even the ones that were angry with me. I love them, and I only hope the best. But over here with this podcast, the idea is over there, I'm reaching 100, 200 people. Here, I'm reaching 8,000 people a week. And the response has been incredible. People are genuinely responding to the truth of who Jesus is by just listening to people like us talk.
Mm-hmm.
Where over there, I could put together a 15, 20-minute sermon and, you know, teach. I've been told by many people, well, you're a great teacher. I've learned, though, I'm not. I thought I was a great teacher until you teach something for 3 years and then you don't see it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
start,
see what you mean.
you start to think, well, maybe I'm not that good of a teacher.
Uh-huh.
But
you don't see the results.
Yeah, but I've had also some really great men and wise men come and tell me that's just not true. Like, you have helped many people understand truth. But I'm not bitter. Like, that's the thing. Is that there's this idea that goes around. People think I'm bitter. I'm just not. I can't be. Think of your little daughter. How could I ever be bitter or angry with a God who will save a little child and give breath? I can't.
Yeah.
Because he's the one who gives me breath. And yeah, that's just where I'm at. So my goal is the goal of this podcast is to have fun, entertain, talk to people, but once a week, talk about what really matters to me. And I can't do that at a church. I can't speak what I believe is true all the time because they'll get upset. Like, people will get upset, and you definitely cannot talk politics ever, or you'll cut half the people out of your life. And I don't ever want that. You can't. There's things that you can and can't do that I can do at this platform. Like, I can have a country singer come in here and tell stories about when we were wild and dumb kids and not be fired the next week. See, when the Apostle Paul would go places, if you ever notice the Apostle Paul, every time he would step into and talk to people, his testimony was about how bad he was. And even after his conversion, he still made mistakes. With Mark, when he kicked him out, and later on he regretted it. Well, I probably shouldn't have done that. Like people, he still made mistakes, but he still always opened with, I wasn't that good. Today, if you open with, I wasn't that good. When I was 16, I was doing cake stands with all these people, having parties, doing all this. You are not fit to be a pastor. I mean, that's what goes through people's heads. And it's like, that's just not the reality of now. There are people who've grown up in the church and are great men, and they live life that almost seems perfect. But as a pastor who talks to those pastors, I can assure you they're not perfect. Mm-hmm. I can assure you of that. And typically when people really hit the road, like the really hard road, they call me because they're like, he's the one that actually understands a little bit, and that's just where I was. And here I am now. And you know what? No one's asked me that question. You're the first person who's asked me that question.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's like, but I'm like, it is what it is. And I do not claim to be perfect. I never will claim to be perfect. And but it's also been humbling, because when you're like pastor of the year, 2 years in a row, when your church is blowing up and growing, you sometimes start to think it was you.
Yeah.
And then you go, no. And, maybe God needed to cut down a tree and I was a tree that needed to be cut down. Mm-hmm. But even in that, he's still like, I'm going to cut you down. I'm still going to use you. Mm-hmm. So that's where we are. And
that's good.
So,
Now, you told me you had some good podcasts with Martin Sheen.
Oh, well, no, we're going to be having him. We're going to be having him. Yeah.
Okay. Haven't had one yet.
Yeah. Well, me and him had a good time. Mm-hmm. And he told me when the time's right, we're going to do it. I think we're going to do it before the movie releases. Okay. And I also know that they're trying to have it to where maybe he comes down during the one opening to promote the movie and all that. And that would probably be the time. Do you want to come hang out with Martin Sheen?
Yeah, might as well.
I mean, I'll have you over. If he comes down, I'll have you over. I'll have you come over when we're doing the podcast. Like, he's such a good dude,
Yeah.
man. Like, I did not in a million years think he would be that cool. And he was.
Yeah.
That might be edited out. Like, it's like, yeah, he's like, but no, he's a good man. It was fun. Like the whole time with him was something special. And the reason why is because all of this that I'm talking about, the church, literally happened a week before. And I'm walking in this haze, like this weird funk, not knowing what to do. And then here comes Martin Sheen. And we just sit and start talking. And he starts giving me like this sage wisdom, like a wizard, like he's like 84. Like, yeah. And I've always told people, I say it over and over, the older people are, you should listen because they're more seasoned. They've been salted.
The older people.
Yeah. This is the other thing that's been really incredible that I've noticed is I've made mistakes in my life. And the people who are the most understanding are the people who are older. Once you're over about 70, you have a different perspective. You're like, you are not a complete screw up, Brian. You're not that. Because I've been there. The thing is that so many are like, I've been in that. I've been where you've been.
Yeah.
And, I know what you've been through. And it's like, it's good to know that. But you don't get that from someone in their 50s, 60s, even their 40s. I mean, the people in their 50s and 60s are a little self-righteous. They think, well, I think sometimes they're trying to play it out for their kids. I don't know. Like, I really don't. But once you get older, I think it's because your time's coming closer.
Yep. That's exactly it.
And then you start to realize I wasn't perfect either. And I know I'm going to be judged by the same measure that I judge others. And that is, like, imagine for a moment, like, being somewhere and being judged by people who have done things 10 times worse, but they make you seem like the biggest villain. They're going to be judged by the exact same measure they judged you. That's scary.
Yeah.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
But I pray for those people. I'm telling you, I'm sharing a lot about myself with you, probably because you got me so emotional hearing that whole thing. I started crying over here. They're not going to see that on camera. I'll be panning back to you.
Are you chicken?
Yeah, I'm a little chicken. No, I'm over here crying. I'm like, oh my goodness. And now my heart's all like filled up. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'll just tell the truth. Today's honest day, but it was just like, yeah, I mean, it's hard. I actually have a lot of more empathy towards pastors than I did a year ago. After,
well, how hard it is.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah, and it's hard to let people see who you really are, because everybody expects you to be a certain way, and it's like, man, I'm not kidding. Right now, me talking about this would probably be the most watched podcast. Like people are going to probably tune in to say, oh my gosh, we've never seen Ryan talk like this before. That's the truth, though. The truth is that my heart melts for every single person, even the ones that hate me, that throw things. I still love them. And I hurt. I really do hurt. I genuinely hurt. But I also know I don't want to hurt more people. And so I'm not gonna play the game. I'm just not gonna play the game. The Lord will judge.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard, because I know there are people that look at me and they're like, I've got this my whole life. And what I've learned, and you probably learned this because you've lived a long life, is the more I've lived, like, I've grown up my whole life, and people have always said things like, he's so cocky. He's so arrogant. Look at him. He walks like he owns the world. He talks like nothing, But what they don't understand, that I've realized recently, is I'm not confident nor am I cocky, nor do I believe I'm better. The honest to God truth is I'm insecure. And by default, I'm projecting something and I don't even know I'm doing it. And that's something you just learn in life. What I've noticed is that people like to project themselves on you. They look at you and say, "Oh, you have a sin issue, or you've made a mistake. I'm going to project everything that I've ever done onto you. I'm so guilty for what I have done that I'm going to punish you for it."
Okay.
And because it'll make them feel better. And then you have these people who are just willing to do it, so easily. And that's where it hurts, because when you sit around and teach one message for 3-4 years, and then all you see is, that you start to think, well, maybe I wasn't a good teacher.
I was reading something about the longevity of pastors today is around 5 years, and they go into something else. That's scary.
I actually would go back I would go back to pastoring. Like, I really would, because I believe in the message of grace, and I believe it should be shared with many people, as many as possible.
You do this and pastor.
I've thought about it.
Yeah.
I really have thought about it, and it's just, I think I need a break. I guess really what it is I need a break right now, and
he's gonna lead you the right way.
yeah, I need people like you praying for me, because apparently he listens. He listens to you.
I have actually prayed for a lot of people that worked out. So I'm not saying it's because of me, but I just believe you got to pray continuously. You
Oh, I'll tell you what, we went down a rabbit hole today
We
that
did,
we
didn't
were
we?
not, we weren't planning on going on at all. And it's going to be probably going viral in the next couple of days. Like, seriously, people are going to be like, what is Ryan talking about? And the truth is, I'm not a perfect human being. And I know that. But I'm not about to destroy a bunch of people and hurt a bunch of lives for the sake of someone being right and someone being wrong. It's not about being right or wrong. That's the thing too, is I've learned through the process of the past year. Basically, this has been about a year, like this process that I've been kind of like walking through.
this process here.
Not this incident, but this whole idea is what I've figured out is the problem with many people who go to a building like a church, in the church government, they're too worried about the image of the church and not about the people. Like, stop worrying about who walked in the door, like, and start worrying about the people, not the image. So for instance, I was told at one time there was a guy who got in trouble, with his wife, had issues, but he came in and he was begging for Jesus to help him, walk him through it. And I had an elder tell me, I'm glad that you counseled him, but I don't think we want him to go to church here.
Whoa.
And I'm like, why? Well, because it just, we don't want people to think that's, kind of what we attract. Like, now this was early on. This isn't the church as there's now. Like, this is when I first started, and I just looked at him and was like, you don't understand. It is not about the building, the reputation. It's not about the name Christian. Christian's not even in the Bible. Okay. Like, we don't have to be good Christians. What we have to be are followers of Jesus who care about people, not programs, not image, not who's right or wrong, about people. And that's where that's how I came out of it, where I was that and I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to hurt people, but the mud that was being thrown on me, I could have thrown back 10 times worse, but I would not do it because I did not believe it was good for people. It just wasn't good for people. And, and I don't really regret it. I think it was the right thing to do.
You mentioned about the building. So I believe that we should be going to the building, though, that we should congregate together.
You
And
don't forsake the brother.
yes, yeah. So I have a lot of friends that say, "Oh, I'm a believer. I just don't go to church. I can't get there."
Yeah, you don't want to forsake the gathering. That is what's wrong is we've created the idea that the building is the gathering, and it is because it's convenient. Every Sunday, here's a building where a bunch of people gather.
Here's a location.
Yeah,
It's the people.
it's the people. But if you don't go and you're not being around the people, you are not doing yourself a good service.
That's right.
And that's why even with me, like right now, I don't want to be a part of a government system church right now, but we have a gathering every Sunday where about 30 of us meet in a home. And that's our church right now. And that's what we do. And we don't pass an offering plate. We don't do that. Like, actually, we've never done that. That was a shocker for many, is that when I'd go in, I would never ask for money. Every week I would say, the only thing I would say is give as the Spirit leads. That was it. We always made budget. Might have barely made it every month, but we always made budget.
Always made it.
We always made it.
I always made sure you made it.
The second I leave, people are worried about budget. And I'm like, don't be worried about budget. Just speak truth. And as long as you're speaking truth, God will continue to provide. And
So you've got a group of 30, a small group, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So I listen to Rick Warren a lot. Rick Warren,
yeah.
the author of the Purpose Driven Life.
Saddleback Church, I think.
Saddleback Church. Yeah, I love the guy. Listen to him every morning, actually. I get his email about 4:30 in the morning, and that's when I first listen to it. And he is really big on small groups. He's got, now some of this is old. He's got a church of 30,000 members, and he's got like 1,000 small groups. So he's a big believer in small groups being the foundation for the church.
It is. That's how Jesus did it.
Yeah.
Jesus didn't have a mega church. He had 12 guys.
Right. 12 guys.
And again, to really lay it, 12 really bad guys. Like who argued a lot, who wanted to be the one sitting next to, it's like, these aren't really, they were not good men.
Yeah.
And not only that, he took smart ones and dumb ones, and used them all, and they all were great for his kingdom. So you didn't ever judge anyone by
even the one that took the bribe.
Oh yeah,
Judas.
Yeah, well, that is my measure of someone, how close they are to Jesus. Mm-hmm. It's not how they talk to Jesus; it's how they'll talk to Judas.
That's cool.
And I believe that, like. And that's why if you ever, and I had one of my friends, his name's Sean. I don't think he would mind me saying his name, Sean Cummings, Brown and Cummings.
Oh, I know Sean.
Yeah. And he said like one of the most profound things that I don't know how I didn't know this. It's like such a easy thing to see, but it's hard to internalize. He said, Ryan, when you're on top and you have something to give, everybody wants you. Everybody's going to love you. But the moment, and he didn't say this, but you're like Judas, they're all going to run away from you. Mm-hmm. But that's when you find out where true believers are. The ones who will show up while you're in the dirt and walk through it with you. Mm-hmm. And I've looked around, and this is what I've noticed. I've probably in my life had over 2,000 people who have been under my leadership of some sort. Out of the 2,000 people, about 30 are the ones who picked up the phone and called.
Really?
Yeah. Now, out of the 30, they were shockers to me because these were people I didn't think would ever call. Mm-hmm. The ones that I thought actually would have cared the most were the ones that cared the least. And I'm like, wow. And that's my new thing. How does a believer treat Judas? Not Jesus. That's how you'll really know who a true believer is. Like, I'm not saying they're not believers. I'm saying the ones that know Jesus the most. Because notice this is something incredible when you're reading through. When God's sitting at the table and he says, one of you will betray me. They all looked around because they didn't know if it was them.
They ask,
Yeah.
"Is it I?" Right?
This is what's incredible is Jesus never hinted once it was Judas. No one, he didn't say
He
someone's,
knew. He
yeah,
knew.
yeah, yeah, but he didn't say like, one of y'all are going to betray me and everybody looked to Judas like, yeah, it's going to be him, isn't it? Like, no,
Yeah.
because Jesus loved Judas just like everyone else.
Right.
He didn't change the way he treated Judas just because he knew he was flawed.
Mhm.
But that's not the way the church works today.
Right.
It really doesn't work. Now, I'm not blanketing like one church. I mean that's in general like, and I think it's changing. I think the landscape is about to change because I think it's collapsing on itself. Um, and God is intervening and he's waking people up. And I believe that's what he's done with me through this situation I've had to deal with was God was coming in to wake me up before it was too late. Because it could have gotten too late, but he came and woke me up and I didn't get sucked into the trap, and it was like, ooh, and the lens becomes clear. And the next thing you know, you're like, wow, I am not what I thought I was. I I did not know I was one of the most self-righteous people. Even though I was the one that everyone would say, he is so like humble. He'll tell you about all of his sin. But here's the deal is I would literally sit back and think to myself, I would never do the things that these people are. I would never think the way that these people are thinking. I not in a million years would I think someone would treat someone that way. Like that was my self-righteousness. And I didn't realize I had it. But I realized it. And that was God breaking me. He had to really break me down. And I'm okay with saying it. This first time I'm saying it, by the way, like with Michael Wright, of all people,
Yeah.
I've had big time pastors come in and sit down, but today Michael broke my heart with his story and just made me start to talk.
Yeah. That's good.
But yeah,
That story needs to be used in all kinds of ways, in my opinion. It's not just for one person.
I've never lost faith. I've never lost, like, that's not like what I'm about to say might sound like that. I've never lost faith, but I felt like I've lost purpose. And hearing you today makes me realize that if it's just one simple prayer, it can change the course of many. I mean, there's now a generational effect of prayer. If she would have died, there wouldn't be the twins. There wouldn't be that future. There's a whole future of thousands and thousands of people who are going to be brought up in the Lord because of a prayer.
She's been really good too. She's goes to Bible study. She knows that she got a special gift. She was given a special gift. And
Well, I know her and John were wanting to come to our church.
uh-huh.
They were gun ho on
Yeah.
going, but then I left, and
Yeah.
then like I was like, well, we don't, I get it.
They were going to go.
Yeah. But we could go on for hours.
Yeah.
But
I got to go. I need to go back to work.
Yeah, he's going to go back and make the money. So I'm just going to close with two things. One, you guys got a lot more today than I planned on you getting. But two is that God is incredible. He truly is. And Michael, I just want to say thank you because I've not really got to talk to anybody like this, and you just made me feel comfortable. And thank you for that. And my hope is that this podcast does really reach out and change people's hearts and let them see the truth of who we are and know that we're not all perfect, but at the same time, God has so much grace and love that he could take a little bitty girl that has no breath and give her life, but not just life, a life that thrives. And so you are such a man of gratitude, and it's such a blessing to be able to spend time and talk with you today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to come over and tell the story. And can you close us with prayer?
Yes, of course. Father, thank you so much for you being the great physician. So many times in our lives, we turn to doctors for help in all of our circumstances, and doctors are great, and you guide their hands. But a little blip on a radar of oxygen in a lung being completely created out of nothing, that happens by you, not by doctors. Father, right now, there are a lot of people who are listening who are going through problems. I know right now of 3 people who have cancer that are struggling, that are being told that they have less than a 10% or 20% chance of survival. And the truth is, Lord, we know that you have them in your hand, but you are the great physician. So we come to you and ask you to start working in their lives. Lord, thank you for having such a gentle hand in dealing with us, even when we are struggling in life. I believe that it's better for us to be humbled by your words than by your ways. But even your ways can be gentle. And it was as gentle as letting a man like Mike come in today and share his story. Father, I hope that this reaches out to people and helps heal hearts, give people hope and understanding of who you really are. You are not this God that many people picture you or label you as. You are a forgiving, loving God who is here to heal, give hope, love, and shower grace upon people who need it the most. Thank you, and we ask all of this in your name, Jesus. Amen.